Hi everyone, thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Peter Egerton and I'm a Principal Consultant at PowerON. As you can see, I'm also a Microsoft Enterprise Mobility MVP, and I specialise in anything really to do with the Microsoft end user computing sort of stack. So that might include Windows 10, Configuration Manager, Microsoft Intune, and really most of the Enterprise Mobility and Security suite of products. So the session we're going to do today is around managing Windows 10 in a mobile world. And the reason I wanted to do this particular session is it's a question that I'm asked quite a lot, and I see it amongst all the customers that I go and visit. People sometimes are a little bit confused as to what the right solution is for managing devices that are roaming quite a bit, and it's a trend that we all see. Devices are moving around more often than they used to, for example. And Microsoft have a few options available for that, and sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, or people are not quite sure which one is the right solution to use. So what I want to do in this session is just cover a couple of those options and help you understand what the differences are, and then help you make a decision on what would be the right kind of solution that suits your organization. Okay, let's press on. So the agenda, as you can see, I just wanted to cover a little bit to begin with around device management and just clear up what is device management exactly, because it's a term that's thrown around quite a bit, but really the definition of that is not necessarily as clear as you might imagine. Following on from that, I wanted to just cover something called Microsoft Endpoint Manager. If you've not heard of this yet, it's something that was announced recently by Microsoft at Microsoft Ignite conference, which is about 3 weeks ago. So I just wanted to give you a bit of information around that and what that means. And following on from that, we'll touch on Microsoft Intune, which I'm sure you've all heard of, is a sort of cloud-based service from Microsoft which can help manage Windows 10 as well as other things. Also, we've got something called a Cloud Management Gateway, which is a component of Microsoft Configuration Manager. So we'll cover that and just see what the differences are and what that can do for you. And then finally, I just wanted to cover a few other considerations in case you maybe don't fit into any of those, and just a few other things that you might want to think about when you're making decisions and managing devices that are mobile. Okay, let's press on. So the first one is device management. So what really is device management? Well, it's an interesting one. It's to some people that might be application installation or uninstallation. That's certainly a core feature of what people would class as device management, and that goes for, we're talking about Windows 10 here specifically, but that goes to mobile phones and tablets as well. Or is it update installation and uninstallation? Certainly for Windows 10, that's pretty much a core feature of managing your devices, because as we all know, we need to push out our Microsoft updates pretty regular. So being able to control that is quite important for any organization or enterprise. Is it really just hardware and software inventory? No, it's important to a lot of people to get inventory around what's out there, what's on those devices, what software is installed, but probably some people might deprioritize that one a little bit, and they're more interested in some other areas. Is it device provisioning and deprovisioning? And what I mean by that is getting those devices out there. So that might be operating system deployment, or OSD. It might be something called Windows Autopilot. It's just a method of getting that out to your users and then reprovisioning that as well if you need to repurpose a device and give it to another user, and then not forgetting the actual end of life for that device. So deprovisioning that device. Is that part of device management? For some people it is, for some people it's not. Or is it just about the reporting? If we've got thousands and thousands of devices out there, it can be hard to track. So really the reporting can be quite an important component of this for a lot of organizations. So some people may not necessarily be focusing around the sort of small detail, but they just want the reporting to see what's out there, what's compliant, what's reported in, what hasn't. Is it remote control? So if you sit yourself in the kind of service desk seat, then remote control can be quite an important feature for you. If a user is calling in for assistance, the facility to remote control to a device can be quite important to guide a user through fixing whatever the problem they might have. Or really, is it all of the above? Is it more than that? Is it something outside of that list? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Really, for me, the answer is whatever you need it to be. Now, I'm saying that because I do visit a lot of different organisations, and each organisation has common requirements, but each organisation also has slightly different requirements as well. So in terms of priority, some people might prioritise application installation and operating system deployment above things like reporting. On the flip side, some organisations may focus around inventory and reporting more. So really, the point I wanted to get across to you there is consider, when you're thinking about how you might manage your devices in a mobile world, consider really what is important to you. When we're thinking about devices being mobile, commonly people are really interested in managing those for update installation or software installation and maybe some reporting. Everyone again is a little bit different. Remote control can be pretty important to a lot of people, but if you think the differences between what is on premises and what is someone roaming across different locations, whether they're working from home or from public Wi-Fi hotspots or 4G or something like that, then we really need to think, why do we need to manage those externally? What's the primary purpose? And as I say, commonly the answers that I'm given are update installation, because we live in a world where security, certainly in IT, is quite an important subject. So we need to be able to patch any vulnerabilities or any zero-day vulnerabilities in particular pretty promptly and quickly. So that's usually high up in the list. But as I say, it's really what you need it to be. So some people are happy with just that, and some people want more. Okay. So if you've been keeping up on the Microsoft news just recently, you might have heard of something called Microsoft Endpoint Manager. This was an announcement that Microsoft made about 3 weeks ago at the Microsoft Ignite conference in Orlando. And really, it's an effort to try and clear up any misunderstandings between the products in terms of what the right one to use is. So very much related to this session, I'm sure you've probably all heard the term, the SCCM, as the product's known, or Configuration Manager, is maybe on its way out, and Microsoft Intune will overtake that, and that's the thing you should be using. That's what you consider to be modern or cloud-based. Microsoft have kind of admitted that they've made some communication issues on that, and maybe not put that across in the right way. So they've announced this thing called Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And really, what this is it's just really a branding change. It's a combination of Configuration Manager, or System Center Configuration Manager as you might know it, or SCCM, and Microsoft Intune. And what they've now come out quite clearly and said is, if you want to use SCCM, then that's fine. You continue to do that. We're not going to take that away from you at all. If you want to use Intune, if you want to be a cloud only sort of organization, then that's perfectly fine too. And really, if you want to use both, that's also perfectly fine. In terms of roadmap and the life on those products, they're there as long as you need them, and that goes for SCCM as well as Intune. So as you can see, what I've got up here is there's something called devicemanagement.microsoft.com, or it's abbreviated to the DMAC console, and that's been around a little while now, about 12 months. And as you can see from the screenshot, if you'd looked maybe a few weeks ago, you will see that it's called Microsoft 365 Device Management. And what that is just really a sort of filtered scenario-based console for anyone that's dealing with Microsoft Intune and anything around that end-user computing or device management. That's now rebranded into Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, as you can see on the right-hand side. Now, what will happen? And as I say, this change really has only come this week, the rebranding. I think it was around Wednesday this week, something like that. And what you will see is if you start to co-manage your devices from Configuration Manager and Microsoft Intune, you'll start to see all your devices come through into the one portal. So you can just use the one and perform most kind of common tasks from that. Now, that's not fully kind of developed yet. It's on its way. We've seen a lot of changes over the past few weeks in this portal in terms of the items that are in there and the way it's just structured a little bit. So there is a little bit of a learning curve. If you were familiar with this before, it's a little bit different. But really, in terms of Endpoint Manager, as the product is now called, we can see that all in one place, assuming that we're going to co-manage. Now, if you want to go try this, the address is devicemanagement.microsoft.com, or there is a short code, as you can see, aka.ms/dmac. I've put a couple of links in there for you too, if you want to go find out a little bit more about this. In particular, I think an interesting one to watch is if you see the bit.ly link at the bottom. That's a guy called Brad Anderson, who's called Vice President at Microsoft, and he owns all of these products. He's done a Microsoft Mechanics video at Microsoft Ignite, and that's worth watching. He shows you the demonstrations and shows you, the way it's going basically. What's also worth noting as part of Endpoint Manager is Microsoft have now said that if you own Configuration Manager licenses, you are now entitled to be able to use Microsoft Intune licenses for those devices for co-management. Now, that's great, just be aware that there are a few caveats to that, in that that's not a full EMNS license and that's not a full Intune license. It's purely for co-management to basically surface your devices in through this console, so you can manage them across what was Intune and what was Configuration Manager. And just to be clear, those two portals that you might have seen previously for Intune as part of the general Azure portal, that still exists and still will as far as I'm aware. And also the Configuration Manager full console, that still exists and that will still as far as I'm aware. Really, this is a bit of a branding exercise and a bit of a communication piece, just to state the position, because there's been a lot of confusion over the past year or two in terms of people not knowing the roadmap for SCCM and kind of making a jump towards cloud products. Maybe that wasn't the right choice for them in some circumstances, but absolutely there still is the right choice for a lot of organizations, and that's the point really. You've just got to decipher what's the right solution for you. Okay, so as I say, if you want to read any more information or find out any more information about that, you can of course contact us, but there's some links on there that you should find useful, and if you've obviously got an Intune tenant or an M365 tenant, then go ahead and try that address and have a look what's in there. Okay, so that leads us on to Microsoft Intune, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, and it's a good chance that a few of you guys have probably already using this. Now, Microsoft Intune is the Microsoft cloud-based service for managing mobile devices. And when I say mobile devices, obviously this session is predominantly around Microsoft Windows 10, and I say 10 exclusively as well, because Intune really is limited to Windows 10 predominantly. Now, there is also some management of mobile phones and tablets in there on iOS and on Android, and there's also Mac OS management. And that's one of the features of Intune. So if I just run through that, really Intune is what's generally considered, and when people sort of ban the term or throw the term modern management around, a lot of people assume that means Microsoft Intune. That's partly true, but not fully. It's certainly classed as the modern solution because it's cloud-based, and obviously we all know Microsoft are a cloud-based company. So there's a lot of emphasis going into that, but equally there is in Configuration Manager too. But really that's the kind of newer solution of those two. As I say, it's born in the cloud. It's always been a cloud-based product. It's actually been around for quite a long time. I can't remember exactly the year, but certainly maybe 2010 or 2011 I think. It just really was quite basic in terms of function back then, and in recent years it's been really ramped up in terms of functionality and become quite a popular option for a lot of organizations. So yeah, that's the kind of native cloud option. As I said before, Windows 10 only, so this doesn't really manage Windows 7. There are options around Windows 8, but really for all intents and purposes we would just consider it for Windows 10 only. And as I said before, there's mobile operating system supported, so if you're an organization that does mobile device management around mobile phones and tablets, this can do both. So you've got this kind of single pane of glass approach, and if you look at the portal that I just showed you, the DMAC portal, then you will see that that lists all device types within there. and really it's native to M365. So in the original kind of implementation of Microsoft 365, which is really just a kind of licensing SKU more than anything else, I'll be honest, Microsoft Intune has always been part of that, as part of EMNS, which is one of the components of M365. Okay, so I just wanted to show you very quickly in terms of the portal. So that's what the portal looks like. If I drill through on there, it should bring us through to a portal, and we're looking at Windows 10 devices in here. If I just get rid of this, and you can see I've got all my devices in there, and I'm just looking at Windows 10. As I say, this is just a filtered view on Windows devices at the moment, and if I kind of work my way back through this portal, you'll see that you've got other devices in there too. But if I bring you up one of these devices, you can see what kind of options that we've got there. So we can retire that device if we're getting rid of it, or we're removing it from our infrastructure, then we can retire it. We've got options around wiping it. So if this is maybe a personal device or it's been lost or stolen, then we can wipe that as well. We can obviously delete it, and we've got a few other options. I'll not run you through all of them, but we've got things like autopilot reset and fresh start. And as you can see, this is a web-based console, and that's where Intune has always really been. So the options that are in there are cloud-based and web-based. So we can do things like resetting Windows 10, implementing a full scan or a quick scan of Defender, and you've got a few other options in here now as well, so you can rename it. And something called BitLocker key rotation, that's relatively new to Intune. It's something that's been as part of a product called MBAM, Microsoft BitLocker administration and monitoring. So yeah, that's part of Intune now as well. And what we can do is, we can instigate some of these actions. We can see a little bit more information, and just to run you through briefly on the left hand side, typically these are the sort of pieces of information that are gathered when a device is enrolled into Intune. You can see all the kind of applications. I've got a basic compliance policy on there, just a built-in one, but we can build compliance policies on top of these as part of the bigger M365 and Intune feature set. I've not really got any device config policies applying to there. I can also apply app config policies, baselines, recover any sort of encryption keys, and then we've got some managed apps. So that's just a one-off example, but you can see the kind of view. So I can do that. Got all kinds of different views in there. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a very quick insight into that. So that's what Intune looks like if you've not seen that or used that. You can see the features that are in there are very much kind of cloud-based and cloud-native, and that's great. And I guess for a lot of organizations, the features that offers is enough. When I'm comparing to something like Configuration Manager, that product's been around for quite a long time, so maybe some of the features are a little bit more mature, or there's some more advanced or enhanced features. But going back to my original point, it really depends what you want. So I certainly would never be put off using Microsoft Intune. It's a great solution. It's just got slightly different options available to it, but it's evolving all the time. Okay, so that was Intune. Another option from Microsoft is something called a Cloud Management Gateway. Now this really is, if you've got Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager, which, just for info as well, since the rebranding of Endpoint Manager, will now be known as Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. So a little bit of terminology change to get used to there. And don't worry, I get confused all the time. So it's only been 3 weeks and I've still not quite got the hang of that one. But yeah, Cloud Management Gateway, what this offers us is a way of managing our devices over the internet effectively. So obviously SCCM or Configuration Manager is an on-premises based product, and what that does is offer us a kind of gateway in Microsoft Azure that allows us to go manage our devices. So it's built on Configuration Manager. It's got native cloud integration, and when I say that, it's not built as a cloud feature. It integrates with Microsoft Azure. You will see, we'll jump in a moment just briefly. When you install a Cloud Management Gateway, you do it from the Configuration Manager console, and what that does, it uses templates as part of Microsoft Azure to then provision a small virtual machine, and that is used as it's kind of a black box virtual machine. You don't need to maintain or do much with it, but there is a sort of additional cost that you need to be aware of for that one. You need to pay for that one. If you've got a single instance, certainly on UK prices is around £70 a month, and then you've got some other kind of flexible cost depending on what you use that for, so things like traffic and storage to consider. I just wanted to make you aware of that. The costs really are not huge or something that you need to concern yourself too much about, but it's certainly something to be aware of. So as I say, one of the advantages I guess of Cloud Management Gateway is that it's multi-version Windows. So SCCM or Configuration Manager manages Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, so you've got that option that you can manage those devices through that as well. Now, mobile operating systems, and when I mean that, I mean Android, I mean iOS, I mean macOS. They're not supported as part of Configuration Manager. There have been other versions of an SCCM client in the past, but where we are now in terms of managing Windows 10 devices, we're not going to see all our phones in the same place. There was previous versions of Intune Hybrid, it was called, where we could integrate that with Config Manager directly and then surface all our phones and things through Config Manager, but that's not the case now. It does integrate well with M365, but as I say, it's not a native M365 product in the true sense that it's a cloud-based product, although it does come under the licensing SKU. So if you buy M365, you get EMNS, and out of that you get entitlement to be able to use SCCM. Now, I'm saying that, go and check with your licensing reseller. Don't quote me on that one, I am not an authorized licensing reseller, so please do go and check on that one. But it does integrate with all the other products as part of M365 because it does come under that kind of bracket. Now, one of the things about Cloud Management Gateway, as you can see on this screen, I'm just linking straight back to the docs site, to the Microsoft docs site. So if I drill through, I just wanted to give you a quick highlight of what kind of features you can and can't use with a Cloud Management Gateway. So you absolutely can do things like software updates. So that is, we can publish software updates through an internet-based gateway, and your clients can either download it from there, or what we can do is tell them which updates to get, and they go download it from elsewhere, namely Microsoft Update. The reason you might want to do that is to avoid some of the costs of sort of data regress that's associated with Microsoft Azure. But we can do all kinds of other things like endpoint protection, inventory. There's things called run scripts, which is part of real-time management. So if we want to apply real-time changes to devices, run real-time scripts, we can do that. That also relates into something called CM pivots. We can do real-time management. We can do software distribution. We can get the client in there, and we can do Windows 10 in place upgrades as well. So that's feature updates. If you're moving your clients from something like 1709 to 1803, 1809 and so on, if you're using feature updates or an in-place upgrade task sequence, then we can do that through a Cloud Management Gateway as well. Some of the other options that are not yet available, and I say yet because Microsoft are constantly evolving this product, is certainly not slowed down because Intune has sped up. They are both equally being developed really fast. We've got a few options that we can't yet do, so pushing a client out from scratch, although I've said we can install, we can't push from SCCM. We can't quite do remote tools, that's in tech preview at the moment, so we can't do remote control at this point, whereas you can if your device was on premises. And we've got a few other options in there that, as you can see, I'll let you read for yourself. But that certainly is getting there in terms of common tasks. Again, going back to the original point, it's really what you want it to be. Okay, so just to give you a very sort of brief overview of how that works, in your on-premises you have your Configuration Manager components. That would be namely a management point. You nominate that to be the one that interacts with your Cloud Management Gateway. You also have a software update point. Again, you can nominate that to interact with your Cloud Management Gateway. You have a role called a service connection point, which is really just creating a connection up to Microsoft Azure outbound, and it's just checking for any updates. You also have a CMG connection point. Both these roles are really light, and that makes an outbound 443 connection, keeps that open, and then any clients that are roaming will make a connection up to the management gateway and go back down that already open connection. and you can see in the cloud we've got the management gateway, and if we want to have a configuration manager distribution point, we can do that as well. Now there's all sorts of options around securing this connection with certificates. There's you can use all standard HTTPS. There's something called enhanced HTTP. If you are in a kind of hybrid join scenario, so if you're on a normal domain join and an Azure AD join, then you've got slightly different options. Again, if you're pure Azure Active Directory, then that gives you another option in terms of securing that. I'm not going to cover that all in detail because it can be quite in depth, but you can see the options are there. These two roles are quite light, and just to be clear, even though there are 4 separate roles here, these don't need to be 4 separate servers. I just wanted to give you an indication of how that works, and obviously there's some information there that you can go and read into a little bit further, or feel free to come and ask us. That's perfectly fine. So finally, we've got some other considerations that you should make if you want to manage your Windows 10 devices when they're kind of out and about. Why not use both of these options together? You've probably heard that I mentioned something called co-management. What that is if you've got a configuration manager on premises and you've got access to Microsoft Intune, which we know is the case now, you can do something called co-management. So you create a loose connection. I'm calling it a loose connection just because I just want to make it clear that it's not what used to be considered as Intune hybrid. You create a connection between configuration manager and Intune, and then you can basically, as far as your end client is concerned, you can use whichever feature you want from either config manager or Intune. And if you're using the DMAC console in particular, you will see that your devices appear. If you noted from the DMAC console, some of those items in there said they were managed by MDM and config manager, some were managed by just Intune. So it gives us the best of both, and it's something that I'm a big fan of, I'll be honest. But it really just depends on your kind of strategy as an organization, where you want to be. If you want to be all in on cloud, then Intune's certainly the place to be looking. Cloud Management Gateway obviously does have an element of cloud, but we're still with a tie into an on-premises product in Configuration Manager. But co-management is a really good place to be. And again, just referencing the communication that Microsoft made at Ignite, they're more than happy for you to use that as your kind of destination. Often it was seen as a bit of a stepping stone from moving from on-prem into somewhere that's kind of hybrid, and then into Microsoft Intune. But co-management is absolutely a destination if you want that to be. It really just depends on, again, what you need and what you want. You've also got an option for on-premises MDM, and it's an often forgotten option. In certain circumstances, and I'll be honest, it's not widely used, but you can use, as part of Configuration Manager, you can use on-premises mobile device management, and the difference is really that's managing your devices through something called OMA-DM, which is how Intune manages devices. And you do also need Intune licenses to do this, but it basically means that the devices are not contacting the internet. So it's really for sort of secure or enclosed areas where your devices are not really roaming per se, but they might still be mobile devices in terms of roaming around maybe a factory floor or a secure area or something like that. So that's, again, certainly an option that's often forgotten, but something that you maybe want to have a look into if that sounds like something that might be useful to you. And then a question that I'm always asked when I talk about this: what about VPNs? Why do I need to manage my devices when they're roaming if we've got a VPN? So I've got direct access. What's the problem with that? There's no problem with that. That's perfectly fine. All I would say is, if you're using a product like Configuration Manager, for some of the real-time management items in particular, there's a detection done on a client to say whether that device is currently online or not, and there's a few status changes. If you use the console, you'll notice you get a little icon on each device, and that changes colour. Now, that if you're using something like a VPN, that doesn't really work very well, and it's not guaranteed, so some of your management options may not be working as guaranteed. And obviously I've put AOVPN, that's, just to be clear, always on VPN, which is the kind of big brother of direct access, if you like. Again, same kind of rules apply. You can absolutely use that if you wish to, but it doesn't kind of give you the native integration into some of these tool sets. So I just wanted to call that out and just be clear on that one. And then finally, third-party tools. So I'm just really talking about Microsoft products here, but there are obviously other products out there in the market. Certainly at PowerON, we only really deal with the Microsoft tools unless we, have a good reason or a good recommendation to go look at some of the others. But predominantly we base our work around the Microsoft toolset because they are the most popular in the marketplace, and as an opinion of mine, I'd say they probably are the best products for managing Windows 10 certainly. There are obviously other third-party tools, as I say, and I just wanted to highlight that ourselves at PowerON have a solution called Pulse DMS for device management, where it's effectively a kind of managed configuration manager instance, so you can get access to config manager without the effort included in trying to maintain that environment. So you can still deploy your own applications and your updates and manage your clients and all that kind of thing, but we'll sort of look after the back end and make sure that it's up to date and accessible. And that also might be an option for you. We've seen a lot of success in that. Certainly, a lot of organizations don't have dedicated staff for managing something like configuration manager, so that can be a nice option for you. Okay, that really summarizes what I wanted to cover today. So firstly, thank you all for attending. If you've got any further questions, anything you needed to ask, anything I've not covered, then feel free to drop us an email on that link, or contact me I'm around on Twitter at Peter Egerton, and I tend to do a lot of speaking in the IT community, so you can come and find me there. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to you all again.